If you can't hear this, then you're not an audiophile. Those crazy audiophiles, you know, people who would spend 1,000 Great British pounds on a 1 metre interconnect and clearly hear the difference between that and their previous £10 cable bought from AliExpress. Yes, and by lifting their speaker cables a few centimetres from the floor, they can hear that too. No, I'm prepared to believe that some people really can hear this. And if I had a no sarcasm emoji, I'd use it now. I'm prepared to believe that some people really can hear this. Notice I didn't quite say, I believe. If you're watching this, then perhaps you're an audiophile who's up for a challenge. Or perhaps you're just curious to know whether you can hear what audiophiles can hear. Or what audiophiles can't hear. We'll see. So I have a recording and there's something wrong with it. The challenge is, can you hear what's wrong? I can hear it clearly, without golden ears, ears made of coarsest flannel cloth, in fact. Here's the clip. Shall I play it again? So there are two possibilities here. You heard the problem, or you didn't hear it. If you're an audiophile with $1,000 interconnects, suspended speaker cables and all the rest, and you didn't hear it, then you wasted your money. If you can't hear this, you can't hear anything. By anything, of course, I mean all those details your equipment and upgrades were supposed to provide. But maybe you did hear it. What did you hear? I'll give you a moment to firm up your thoughts. Then I'll tell you what you heard. You heard the solo clarinet wandering in the stereo image. Sometimes it's centre, sometimes left, sometimes right. And it can vary from note to note. I think we should listen again. You heard it this time for sure, and even audiophiles can hear it. You know, sometimes listening out for all those tiny, tiny details can make you forget about the proverbial elephant trumpeting in the room. Let me throw in some credits here. The clarinet soloist is the amazing Roland Hendricks from his album The Clarinet as Prima Donna. I know I'm pronouncing his name wrong, but if I attempted what I'm guessing should be Flemish pronunciation, it could be a lot worse. The piece is Weber's Second Clarinet Concerto, and you can buy this on the Evil Penguin label, along with other music by Weber, originals and interesting arrangements. The link is in the description. Oh, and it's on Spotify too, and probably the other streaming services. So you can listen right now, after watching the rest of this video, where I'll explain what's going on. There may be some listeners who still have doubts. The problem is easier to hear on headphones or closer to your loudspeakers in the direct field. So try that. Here's a clip of the clarinet alone, and I'll help you with a vectorscope display. You'll see a lot of fuzziness in the display, which is the reverberation in the room. What you're looking for is the overall tilt. Tilted to the left means that the stereo image is biased to the left. Tilted to the right, then it's biased to the right. Let's go. So what's causing this? It's the recording technique. I have to say that other than this issue, I'm very well satisfied with this recording. And since the music and performances are so good, a small issue with stereo imaging isn't going to stop me enjoying it. Firstly, let's look at a video of the recording session. We can see that Roland does move quite a bit, quite a distance, and the clarinet is in almost continuous motion. Now, any recording engineer would prefer that the solo instrument doesn't move. This is why the piano was invented. but the piano has its own problems. But also, any recording engineer, even fresh out of college, knows that if a performer moves, it's usually not a good idea to try and persuade them not to. Movement can be part of the physical expression, and the performance would be dull and flat if the performer tried not to move, when it's more natural for them to rock and roll a little. What we can see in this wide shot are a number of microphones, and we perhaps can't see them all. What we don't know is whether all of the microphones were used and in what proportions they were balanced into the mix. Any stereo microphone setup will pick up movement in the solo instrument. That's just going to happen, and we have to accept it. The way to get a firm centre image of a soloist or singer, leaving out large instruments like the piano for now, is to use a single mic fairly close. Not as close as you would for popular music. The sound needs to breathe in a little air before it hits the mic. But what do we see here? Aha! 2 mics spaced apart, which in this configuration would normally be panned hard left and hard right. If you want to capture movement, this is the best way. An alternative approach is to use a coincident crossed pair, which will capture the movement but not so much as a spaced pair, because it isn't sensitive to timing differences. I see a third mic as well, and all 3 of these mics seem to be pointing towards the solo clarinet. The third mic is spaced by height. The reason for this may be to avoid reflections that might affect the sound in the horizontally spaced mics. The third mic in this position would almost certainly be panned centre. This might be an either-or situation, spaced mics or upper mic. Setting up microphones that you think you might need helps the session run smoothly. It's better to set a microphone and not need it than to need it and you haven't set it. Or perhaps the third mic is balanced with the spaced pair. I'd say though that the spaced pair is doing the heavy lifting here. But notice that Roland's movements are sometimes up and down. If all 3 mics are being used, this will alter the balance between the spaced mics and the upper mic. The upper mic shifting the image to the centre. So if Roland moves from high centre to low left, the image in the stereo sound field will move from centre to left. If Roland stays low and moves to the right, the image will move to the right. And don't forget that sound comes out of the entire length of the instrument, not just from the bell. This accounts for notes randomly popping in from random directions. As far as I can think it out, this completely explains the sound we're hearing. I don't want to come across as though I'm saying the engineer is doing it all wrong. As I said, in all other respects the recording is excellent, and when it comes down to my point in question, it's a matter of taste. My taste just goes a different way. So my questions to you. Are you an ordinary audio or music enthusiast? Did you hear it? Are you an audiophile? Did you hear it? If you thought you were an audiophile, but you didn't hear it, what are you going to do now? In the comments. One more thing. In the video, I spotted a Bricasti M7 stereo reverb processor. Does anyone have any comments on this in the context of acoustic instruments in the real world? And what would audiophiles think of this? See you soon.